Welcome to CSM Mastermind, everyone. I'm Andrew Marks, co-founder of Success Hacker and our Success Coaching Training Program. We're back for our monthly live webcast today talking about delivering a personalized customer experience. This free learning event is brought to you by Success Coaching, the world leader in customer success professional development training with over 16,000 students from more than 70 countries. Our training programs are available in a variety of formats, from self-paced online learning to virtual instructor-led boot camps. We're now accepting registrations for our fall 12-week live coaching programs being offered under the University of San Francisco School of Management. We also have a number of standalone courses taught by industry experts, including data-driven decision-making, a course on statistics, really cool course, pretty intense math course, by the way. Having difficult conversations, change management for customer success, outcome-based selling, and what successful managers do, a management training and coaching program for those looking to move into customer success leadership. I believe our next cohort launches for that one in July. Yes, Ashley? Find out more, I think that towards the end of July. Find out more at successcoaching.co. Ashley will also drop a link in the chat. For those of you who haven't participated in one of these events before, this is a live and unscripted discussion where we dig into a single topic relevant to customer success. Right now, this script is the only thing that we really prepare. Regardless of the company that you work for, the scope of your role, or the sizes of the customers that you deal with, we aim to pick topics that are going to be practical and useful to you. The schedule for our upcoming events can also be found at successcoaching.co. Click on the events tab at the top of the page to find out more and to register. A few housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is recorded and we'll be posting a replay along with a transcription on our website early next week. We will be taking questions later on during the webinar, so please don't be shy and use that Q&A button found at the bottom of your screen to ask or upvote a question. We're also broadcasting on LinkedIn Live and have someone monitoring that feed. Thank you, Tracy. So if you have questions and you're watching on LinkedIn, please post them and they'll be relayed to us. Also, please keep all commentary to the chat window. There's a lot of thought leadership out there, along with a lot of theories about how to deliver customer success. In this series, we focus on practical, real-world advice, best practices, techniques, and shared experiences from those practicing customer success on a daily basis. And to do that, we invite three panelists to join me for a roundtable discussion. Unfortunately, one of our panelists is unable to make it today, so we've got two. These are people who are great at their craft, and we ask them to share their experiences and their perspectives. So without further ado, I would like our panelists to introduce themselves to you all, talk a bit about who they are and what they do, and let's get started as usual in alphabetical order with Chris.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so I'm Chris Taswell. I'm a mid-market CSM at Genesis, currently managing a book of business about 15 key accounts. I've been in the contact center space, working with customers for about 6 years. And prior to being a CSM, I was a sales manager in the education space. This idea around, delivering personalized experiences, honestly, has just been a constant in my career, even dating back to like my first role. I was expected to close almost anywhere from 75 to 100 deals per month. And my focus was really focused on creating repeatable processes, finding different ways to make a unique experience for my customers. So I'd love to just kind of share some of those insights with you all.
Awesome. Little trivia. Todd Eby, my founding partner, and I met at Genesis.
There we go.
Now, it was 23 years ago. So it was a very different company then than it is now, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we Todd and I go back a long ways to the Genesis days, the call center space as well. So awesome. And Dimple.
Yes, thanks, Andrew. So hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today and share some thoughts with you. I'm Dimple Villamoria, and I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager at HubSpot. and I work within the mid-market segment. And really, for those of you who don't know what HubSpot is or does, HubSpot essentially provides a series of products and tools that allow companies to manage their businesses effectively. And our goal as an organization is to really help millions grow better. Prior to HubSpot, I've had experience working as a customer success manager at 2 different ad tech companies in the startup space. And I've been working as a customer success manager for approximately 7 years now. And I'm very excited to speak to you about today's topic, about being able to drive a personalized experience for my customers and how I go about doing that. So excited to connect with you today and share my thoughts.
Awesome. Thanks, Dimple. We are a happy HubSpot customer ourselves as well. So we get a lot of value out of HubSpot, and we appreciate the programs, especially the ones for small startup companies that y'all provide. So, once again, we all appreciate your time that you're spending with us today. Now let's get to the topic at hand. Today's customers expect organizations to understand their goals and preferences and engage with them as individuals, rather than simply customer types or segments or objects. And we need to be able to serve the needs and motivations of everyone within our customer organizations, from key stakeholders who may not be using your offering at all, down to the individual users who are leveraging your offering on a daily basis. But a customized one-on-one experience for every user at every customer isn't feasible. Most business models can't support a one-to-one or even a one-to-some coverage model. We still need to maintain a predictable, repeatable approach to delivering success and do it at scale. So my first question to you both is, how do you even begin to offer a tailored experience while maintaining scalability?
Definitely want to take it away?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
No, you can take it away.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Okay, great. So what I was going to share is, I think, when it comes to providing a predictable experience for your customers and a repeatable experience, I think the first step to that is really setting expectations with customers. Depending on the book of business that you manage and the parameters in which you need to operate based on your segment that you work within. I think it's really important to set those expectations so that they know how often you're going to touch base with them and how often they're going to hear from you. So I think that's really important. I think in addition to that, there's other elements, like, for example, really understanding your customer's business and some of the pain points that they're dealing with. I think as an individual, if I can understand my customer's business and their challenges, I think that's going to stick with me, so that going forward, future engagements that I have with that same customer and their team, it'll allow me to share features and tools that I think that they can take advantage of. And that in itself will allow me to make the experience a lot more personalized.
Yeah. I think piggybacking off what you said about knowing your customer, one great thing that I like to do is we implemented a customer transition document so that we can really know our customer. So repeatable process so that we understand, what does our customer do? What industry are they in? Why did they buy our product? Being able to gather that information is something that you're going to need in all your interactions so that you have a good starting point when you're working with your customers. And I think also just kind of taking a second to review back successful customers, looking at and mapping out like milestones that were success driving, finding what a customer needs to know during onboarding to be successful as they continue on in their relationship. So doing a little bit of customer journey mapping to understand some of those key milestones, and then creating playbooks around that to make sure that you're hitting those points for each customer.
So expectation management right out of the gate, right? Helping them understand, here's what you can expect. And then of course, understanding your customer. That kind of should go without saying. Yeah. In order to deliver a personalized experience, or a more personalized experience. I've got to know my customer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If you don't know your customer, I mean, how can you have a personalized relationship?
Really, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You're just going to be speaking in generalization. So I think if you personalize with your customer, if you understand not only their business, but who they are, what are their success metrics? Each stakeholder has different, metrics that they're going to be held to. So in the contact center space, a supervisor has a lot different goals and metrics versus a VP or a CTO. So making sure that I understand what their goals are, what they're going to be measured by, allows me to also be able to create some more tailored experiences for them. So some information that I might share about a specific feature might solve an issue for a supervisor, but the CTO might not need that. So I can just drive that information over to the audience that needs it at the right time, so that we can make sure that they're having the great experience that we're looking to have.
And I think that's a good point, is that you need that, you need that, truly, to have that personalized experience. We need to understand the details about each of the players, each of the stakeholders, not just the key stakeholder, the individual user stakeholder. They're all stakeholders, right? The key stakeholder is the person who's going to say yay or nay to the renewal, that's going to sign the check. But those individual users that are farther down the management chain are still incredibly important. As a matter of fact, the better we serve them, and the better we do at messaging to them the value that they're getting, the better they understand the WITHM, the what's in it for me, that will make its way up the management chain to the key stakeholder. So I want to pause here and let Jerry. It's great. I'm glad you were able to make it. Actually, we didn't think you were gonna make it, but I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to everybody here, and tell a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, who you're with, and that sort of thing, and then we can have you weigh in on this initial question about how do you even begin offering a tailored experience, a tailored, personalized experience, while maintaining scalability. So, Jerry, take it away.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. I'm coincidentally, I'm here at CCW this week, right? And I'm talking to people and customers. But yeah, my name's Jerry Campbell. I'm from ServiceNow. I'm the director of customer management, customer service management, and leading practices. So I write those leading practices for people to implement our solution. But before that, I was at 7-Eleven, and I was head of customer experience at 7-Eleven. So that personalized experience is what I drove at 7-Eleven. And as you guys were talking about, Dimple and Chris were talking, it was great to see that, meeting people in their space. I think Chris hit it on the head, the stakeholders, right? You have those stakeholders, that the individual agent that has a place in this game, and those CEO exec levels, they do write the checks. But if you don't empower those individual agents to deliver and understand really get personal with that customer, then you're going to miss it as a whole. You're going to miss it as a company and your culture. So the upper level has to have that culture to drive down, to empower those individual agents to be able to deliver and meet the customer where they're at. So, yeah, Andrew, that's what I think. I think, again, Dimple and Chris made some great points. And I don't want to repeat what they said, but it's being able to empower those agents is where I see it's playing out in the space.
Awesome. But yeah, and once again, thanks for making time for us today. It's an interesting transition, 7-Eleven to ServiceNow. It's from Slurpees to field service.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the reason I'm at ServiceNow is because I brought ServiceNow into 7-Eleven.
There you go.
Transition, right? So that was a transition.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, we're big fans of ServiceNow. We've got a number of friends over at ServiceNow, but ServiceNow is actually a customer of ours. All right. So we talked about some of the things that, to offer that tailored experience. Right. We talked about some of those elements, but once again, back to scalability. Right. If you've got a one to many, and I know a lot of people have a one to very many model. There are a few business models where it's a 1 to 2, 1 to 3. You're talking 1 to 20s or 1 to 50s, somewhere in the 50s, or 1 to 100. That can feel really daunting. You're like, well, how am I supposed to deliver a personalized experience to every one of my customers when I got 87 customers in my book of business?
Yeah. 100%.
I would say for those instances, like I personally manage about 150 customers in my book of business. And I think, transitioning into this role at HubSpot, I've learned some key tips and tricks that allow me to really be able to continue personalizing that customer experience. And I think, the first one is really being able to have an active listening role. So when you're connecting with customers, being able to ask them those key pointed questions that allow you to learn about their business. So for example, what are their goals? What do they envision when they first purchase HubSpot? If they had to make a decision today about the renewal, what are some accomplishments that they're looking to achieve? So being able to ask some of those pointed questions. And I also say, it's important to take notes. When you have such a large book of business, you're not going to remember everything. You can't rely on your brain being able to remember everything. Maybe with 30 customers, maybe with 10, but not with 150. And I would say being able to take key notes that I can rely on and go back to when connecting with a customer, say 2 months from now, and say, hey, last time we talked, you had mentioned that, even something small, like you were going on vacation to Florida. How was that? Like just being able to make it as personalized as possible and know that you're remembering the things that the customer is telling you and you're not asking them to repeat things multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you may not look, because you have such a big book of business, you may not look at that customer record for months, right? Because your cadence is, well, I've got this book of business. I've got such a book of business. I can only, reach out to this person every 2 months. You want to make sure you have all the context so that you can sound like you're just stepping right back into the conversation. Yeah. Right.
Note taking is big. I mean, I only have 15 accounts and obviously key accounts. So I have a little bit of a different approach, but note taking even still in that instance is critical. It keeps the business continuity going. So we might be working through a problem. And if I document the problem, understand that, this is solving XYZ problem. And, maybe there's a feature request that they're looking for. Documenting, I have a list of all the feature requests for specific customers, and there might be some overlap. So I have a separate column for which customers are requesting this feature. And then we have an opportunity in our system where we can follow it. We can follow the feature request. So when it goes beta, or when it goes general availability, now I can go look at my list and reach out to each of those customers, tell them, hey, we have a beta program starting up. I know you said that this feature would solve XYZ problem. Maybe it's a month and a half down the road, 2 months down the road. The fact that you remember the actual problem that they had and you're not just throwing, hey, this is something new that's coming out. There's, at Genesis, we have new features every Wednesday. I think over the past year, I think we had 350 new innovations. So you can't keep up with all that. So make sure that you have that tailored experience to be able to point to why this feature was an interest to them. Make sure that you remember that item for them while you send it over to them.
Oh yeah, I agree with Chris. I mean, that's what I'm in charge of at ServiceNow, is writing down those lessons learned, those best practices, and implementing across all our customers and meeting them where they're at. I was just talking about that with one of my portfolio managers, is that, we have to meet them with where they're at and what they want the form factor to be. If it's a short video, tutorial video to say, I want to implement this feature, or I want to have this access, that's where, that's a benefit. Just give them what they want. Um, and I talk to people in the industry as they write white papers, and a white paper is way above what our customers want because they want to know what they want. They want that little piece of nugget.
They want you to net it out. They want you to net it out, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Right.
And so that's what I'm doing is transitioning that. And if it's a short tutorial, I don't want any PowerPoints over 10 pages or 10 slides. I don't want any of that stuff. We can concentrate on the specifics of what they want. But the critical point is we have to know what they want. So we have to be able to ask them what they want, right? And then deliver to them how they want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like some of those. I like some of those suggestions that, like the video tutorial. From a technology perspective, I think there's definitely some tools that we can be using to enable us to scale, to support a scaling organization. So, some of the core stuff that you need to put in place, like the note taking and the active listening, that's super important. But we can leverage things like Loom videos where, and we're doing it in a generic way, right? So that we're always thinking of scale. How can I put together for this new Genesis feature that Chris, you're going to roll out? You know that there are 15 different customers, or your organization knows that there are, and this is something that you should be doing from a broader customer success team perspective. We know who all the customers are, that requested this feature or that are interested in this feature. Let's record a 2-minute video and make sure that we're blasting it out to just that cohort and not everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's not a personalized experience. That's a great way to get your mail routed to the spam filter. Right.
Absolutely. And I think an underlying thing of what you were just saying is data. Using data and reporting to be able to identify trends with your customers. Right. When you're looking at just that one customer, this problem can seem minuscule, but if you take a broader picture view and you see that now 35 of your 100 customers are now dealing with this issue, Dimple, now you have an opportunity where you can actually, continue to drive this experience for them by creating a resource, a how-to video, as Jerry was saying, to be able to solve that problem for them at scale.
Right. And yeah, I like what you were saying, Andrew, about like this needs to be like the whole Loom video effort, making it personalized needs to be at the department level, like at the customer success level. So at HubSpot, we have a library of Loom videos that, if somebody asks me, like if my customer asks me about a feature that they want a demo on, it doesn't have to be a video from me. It could be a video from another customer success manager. But then I've also created some that somebody else can use. And that's a way to really make it personalized. And then if they have additional questions after that, if need be, I can, always answer those via email or even create a separate video for them.
Customer success is a team sport. I say it all the time. And I mean that from both the customer success team itself. It's an incredible amount of knowledge and experience and things that just information that you can learn from each other as customer success managers. But also it's the entire company. Yeah. Right. Everybody needs to be thinking about and supporting the customer success effort. This is the subscription economy now. Yeah. Right. You don't get away from you have to move away from silos.
Right? Yeah, you have to. Absolutely. Andrew, I think, again, it starts from the top and it melts its way down. It can't be, my customer experience team or my VOC team delivering that message. And first of all, they have to be vested in the message and work across all departments and have that culture built into your company to really deliver on customer experience.
Yeah, I know a number of your leaders over there, from Bill McDermott down, understand that, get that at ServiceNow, and that's great. I actually know Bill from when he was at SAP, when I was there after the SAP Business Objects acquisition. But that's that's very important. I think you need to have, it needs to be more than just talk.
Yeah.
Right. It needs to be a top down focus for sure.
And I think it's really important to work smart, especially with Dimple. You have 115 customers. Just working hard is not going to do it. Like, somebody's going to fall through the cracks. So just because a process is repeatable doesn't mean it can't be personalized. Like, being able to segment your customers by industry is a really good focus. There's a lot of synergies or overlapping, needs, challenges that you'll see in an industry. In healthcare, you might have 4 different customers, and now you have a process for your healthcare customers to go through, and you can, of course, sprinkle a little bit of personalization throughout that, just based on each customer's specific needs.
Yeah, that's a great point. When you start to segment your customers, you put them in different verticals, different solution cohorts, whatever. Especially if we're talking vertical industry focus, you could then begin to develop standard copy, right? Yeah. For, hey, this is the standard copy for healthcare. And instead of creating an email from scratch, you're at least able to copy, paste, and then tweak. Yeah. Right. It's not. And once again, that's thinking from a scale mindset. Right. You're still personalizing it. And when it comes to good methodology, I've been a methodology nerd for 30 years. Good methodology is prescriptive yet flexible.
Absolutely.
That's so key. We talk about methodology, right? So many companies go in and they say, here's the methodology for implementing our stuff. But really, if you want to personalize it, and I pick on Chris a little bit because I was at United Healthcare and we implemented Genesis, right? And Genesis is just no different than a lot of companies. They come in and say, here's the best way to implement our stuff. We can tell you this. We know how to implement it, but you have to be able to tweak it. It has to be flexible because some of those things we may not want. It may not go the same journey in the method that you're preaching, right? Yeah. And so, I do the same thing with ServiceNow. I tell all the time, it's not about our methodology, it's what the customer wants. Yeah. We can have a basic, premise, but really it's about what the customer wants and what the customer needs. So flexibility is key, Andrew.
Yeah, prescriptive yet flexible.
Absolutely. Flexibility is everything. And I think as a CSM, you have to take ownership of that to understand when to audible. Obviously, I'll use some sports analogies. I'm a former athlete, but exactly. Just being able to shift gears as needed. You'll be on a call with the customer and you're looking through your playbook and wait, they're not saying the same response that I'm expecting. It's your job to be able to pivot, to ask additional probing questions. I think Dimple had mentioned that, asking the 5 why questions. If they present a challenge, understand what the root cause is. Continue to ask questions until you understand, and I always say layman terms or keep it simple, that a 3rd grader, a 5th grader could understand, what's the challenge? What are you looking to get done? What's our path there? And do you have a timeline for when this needs to be completed?
Right.
But back to what you said, Dimple, right out of the gate, active listening is huge when you are trying to deliver a personalized experience. Yeah. And you can deliver sometimes if you're really practicing active listening well. And the people you're speaking to recognize that you are listening to them. They are typically going to share even more information with you, which gives 100%. You the opportunity to provide an even more personalized experience for them.
Yeah, 100%. One little tip that I have, obviously I have 15 customers, so it's a little bit easier. When I speak to different stakeholders, I stakeholder map. So I write down their name, their email, what their role is, maybe a little bit of around what metrics are important to them, but also 1 to 2 interesting facts about them. What's your favorite sports team? Where do you live? Maybe you really like chai vanilla lattes. Right. Remember just small little things about a person and then being able to bring that information up, 3 months down the road
Yeah.
it shows that you connect with the customer. It takes you from a vendor level relationship to now you're truly a partner. You take it a step further, and like Andrew said, using Chris Voss as an example, being able to mirror this, now they'll mirror your behavior and want to know you a little bit better. They'll open up to you a little bit more. They'll share what the challenges are, what's keeping them up at night.
Yes.
Right. And just
the black swans, black swans, as Chris calls it, right?
There we go.
Never Split the Difference. Still pitching that book, folks. Chris Voss. Read it. Telling you, it's about negotiation, but it's
a game changer.
All the key skills for customer success. Sorry, Dimple, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to share an anecdote real quick. So a couple of years ago, I was working, I don't know if you guys know, but the Warriors have been winning a lot lately. And
had to sneak that in.
I've heard of them.
This was their first, I think it was their second championship. They were in the finals. And I had a customer based in Cleveland. And so it was pretty awesome because we just had that like fun rivalry where I kept talking about the Cavaliers and the Warriors beating them. And, it was just like I think it goes down to like, when you build a personalized experience, you can build that trust and rapport with your customers. And when you build that trust and rapport, I think that is going to allow you to have ongoing success with your customers. So I think that's really the key of one of the ways of being successful and building that positive rapport. So.
And it doesn't matter how long it's been since the last time you spoke.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's key. And that's when you know that you've nailed it with a personalized experience. I had a customer. Chuck at Wells Fargo. I've talked about him before on this series. I walked into his office the first time to meet with him, and I saw everything golf. And at the time, I was playing lots of golf, and so we immediately I led with golf into the conversation, and we spent 45 minutes of that hour talking golf. Where's your favorite? Where's your favorite course? What did you shoot? Blah 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 blah. Telling talking stories, what have you, making a personal connection with that person, and then the last 15 minutes was business, and that began this relationship where every time I would get together with him, and they were a large customer of ours, so at first it was I've talked to that guy every couple of weeks, but then I left business. This is when I was at Business Objects. I left Business Objects. And I went and did other things. And about 6-7 years later, after I left Business Objects, hadn't done business with Chuck at all. I'm at Dreamforce in San Francisco, and all of a sudden I hear this voice behind me, Andrew Marks, and I turn around and it's Chuck. And he's taller, he's bigger than he's a big man. He's like, I'm 6'2", he's like 6'5". Comes up to me, gives me a giant bear hug. He's like, how the hell are you, my friend? And I hadn't spoken to the guy in 7 years, hadn't done business with him. I'm like, okay, yeah, we connected on that personal level. I was able to it wasn't anything complicated. There were no special systems. There was no freaking voodoo magic. I didn't use a Jedi mind trick on the guy. I triangulated on something that we had in common. And we talked about that. And we talked about that regularly and made a connection with the person.
You moved it beyond just a transactional relationship. I mean, people are going to buy, people are going to work with people that they like, people that they can connect with. So it's literally just opening up, asking opportunities to understand a little bit more about the person. Like these businesses, these large corporations, they're all made up of a lot of people. So all these people are the ones that get things going. The decisions are not made by the business, they're made by people. So if you can understand people, you can navigate this space at any point in time.
I'd like to, that's key, the people, right? Because I've transitioned from a lot of different companies, from Citibank to 7-Eleven, United Healthcare, now ServiceNow. And the people that I connected with along those routes, and many of them are here today in this conference here, and I can go up and walk to their booth and they know me, and they hey, it's like Andrew, they're hugging you. They're not the ones shaking your hand, asking you questions like, what do you need? What do you want? They're just like, hey, how's it going in your life? What's going on with X? What's going on with the Warriors? Because as you talk about the Warriors, you know, I'm a Warriors fan. ServiceNow is a California team, and we have Boston customers, and so I had to break it down gently to them. They were going to lose, but it was that bonding kind of competitive nature, and just bond with them, and that works.
Totally.
All right.
And you're not going to always get to that point of freaking bear hugs from your customers.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
But you're not. You're just not. That's it. And it's because we're dealing with lots of different people, lots of different personalities. But there's nothing wrong with you writing down that, you know, during your initial kind of ice-breaking conversation that, you know, that my daughter was going to be in a soccer tournament the following week. And even though we didn't talk until 2 months later, oh, hey, how'd your daughter do in that soccer tournament? So freaking simple. So simple. And you're like, wow, you remembered. Or writing down the name of the dog that somebody brought on Zoom. What's your dog's name? You know, it's like, hey, how's Baxter? How's Baxter doing? Is Baxter there? Show me. I mean, that type of thing. It's just, and it's simple and it's short, but it can make such a difference.
Yeah.
Like you said, Chris, it moves you from a vendor customer relationship to partnership. So listen, we've got a bunch of questions. So why don't we take some of these questions? All right. Let's see. From I'm going to do this based on upvotes, and then based on the most recent. So if there's anything that you see in the Q&A list that you want to see answered more quickly, upvote it. And by the way, we do run until 15 past the hour, and to realize a lot of people need to leave at the top of the hour. But if we still have questions listed in the Q&A, we will continue answering them as long as we can. Oh wow, people are totally upvoting. Everything just totally switched on me. So let me resort this thing. All right. So our first question comes from Keely. Keely, thank you for the question. Keely asks, how do you best handle personalization when key stakeholders at different levels are not on the same page about the goals of implementation? Wow. Personalization is not your problem, quite frankly. Drive alignment really should be your initial focus. That's what jumps out at me. But Chris, Jerry, Dimple, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, like you said, just alignment and prioritization is going to be very important. Understand, you know, you might have somebody that does have some different, you know, needs or goals, but overall there's some overarching needs that need to be solved before that can even be solved. So being able to align with them on, I would say, a little bit of the hierarchy of the decision makers, where is these asks coming from, and the prioritization for the organization as well.
Yeah, I think your key stakeholder, you're the person who signed off on this thing, has brought you in to accomplish something that is likely tied to one of that key stakeholder's own personal objectives, or which is likely tied to some overall corporate objective.
100%.
So, you know, my advice always is you need to go find that key stakeholder before we even talk about personalization. Actually, here's an idea from a personalization perspective. I know that you're personally tied to us achieving this goal. Has something changed because folks further down the line are thinking other things?
Yeah, I was going to say, Andrew, I always tie to what they need, right? Whatever that key stakeholder's goal is, I make it so that, and as customer experience managers, we all know that it's all about tying it to the needs of because everybody has their own individual goals, and they really want to be for themselves, right? So you gotta build it in so that they understand what's going on as well.
I mean, ideally, what you're trying to assemble is you're trying to assemble this kind of cascading effect of here's my overall corporate goals that I, as the key stakeholder, are tied to, the reason why I brought you in. And then these folks beneath me, they all may have goals. They're, different goals themselves, but they should all be feeding into that ultimate reason why you're there to begin with. And so if you don't see that alignment exists, that's something you need to jump on right away and figure out how your key stakeholder can help drive that alignment and message to the rest of the team, actually, no, this is the reason why they're here.
Yeah.
Right. And I would also say, sometimes depending, like you said early on, like you have key stakeholders and then you have people that are actually using the product. I think as a CSM, it's important to, when you're on those calls and when you're scheduling that next call, saying, is there somebody else that should be part of this conversation? Like opening up that door so that that you have all of your key stakeholders in the room and that you're not just having a conversation kind of in a silo, that you're really making sure that all of the key players are invited and that you're hearing their thoughts.
Yeah, and even if not all even if you can't get all the key players in the room at the same time, I mean, that is definitely the best practice. So that, and it's got to be the key stakeholder and then everybody below that key stakeholder, so that they're hearing from out of the key stakeholder's mouth, this is what we're doing and why we're doing it, and this is how it's going to benefit us and how it's going to benefit each of you.
Yeah.
Right. If you can't do that, if you can't get everybody in the same room, you still, there's that key step where you need to sit there and look at all of these goals of your implementation, the objectives of what you're trying to achieve, and sit down then with the key stakeholder and say, okay, here's what I'm hearing from this group, and here's what I'm hearing from this group, and here's what I'm hearing from this group. Because even though they may be saying different things, there may be something that you don't know. Mm-hmm. That their objectives actually do tie into the overall corporate objective.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Keely, thank you for the question. Our next question comes from Anna. Anna asks, what do you do when the sales team set expectations that are not real? They just want to close the sale, and you have a customer wanting to cancel on the onboarding stage with all of these goals and needs. We're talking a lot about goals and needs. Yeah, that's
Jerry, it looked like you had something to say.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say that's like the norm.
Right. That's never happened to me.
They always say that, hey, this is what we can sell you. I try to say that sales teams sell a dream.
Yeah.
And then we have to produce reality.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. You get all that stuff, but what sales team says, this is the possible. And then we have to say, what do you want to make it possible? Right? We have to go in there and really ask the question, what does the customer really want? Because at a higher level, those highest stakeholders will be like, oh yeah, I want that whole dream. I want the whole dream. But let's get down to the people that are executing and say, what do you really need to do and really create that great customer experience at a personalized level?
And the problem is, I was just talking about this yesterday with a private coaching that I did for a team. The problem is that if you have sales teams bringing in deals that are unrealistic, are bad fit customers, that are not, inappropriate expectations, mm-hmm. while they may have landed the deal and the company may have collected on that initial year of revenue, and the sales rep will have lined their bank account with the commission for that, the customer is going to likely churn. Yeah. Nobody ever thinks about, the outcome of that sort of thing. It will churn, right? So in this case, I think, Anna, it's a terrible place to be in, because the onboarding stage is an incredible point of leverage. Mm-hmm. It is where you want a customer excited, right? And the promises made by the people who were selling the dream need to match up with the reality, right? So my question back to you, and the question that you should probably pose back to your team and to your leadership, is this something that's happening on a regular basis? Mm-hmm. And if so, is it being done because your sales team isn't educated enough on what you have to offer? Or is it for more nefarious reasons because they just want to toss whatever they can over the fence so they can get paid on it? And there are ways to address that, like clawing back, their commission or not paying them on commission until the customer goes live. There you can install gates in the process where certain individuals have to go through a validation process if they are repeat offenders, or certain promises, expectations require some sort of peer review, some sort of PMO before they can be set to close one.
Right.
Anybody else have anything to weigh in on Anna's question?
I think
I just wanted to share real quick. Sorry, Chris.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I think, really, I think it comes down to like fundamentally, if you think about a company's business, it is more expensive to always have to get new customers through the door than to take your existing customers, drive satisfaction, and eventually have them become an evangelist. It's kind of the HubSpot flywheel, if you think about it.
Yep.
And so I think that it really has to be something, a philosophical belief at your company level that this is what we're striving for. We're not always looking to pull new people in and have them churn the next year. We actually want to have long-term success with our existing customers so that then down the line, they can refer us more customers. Yeah. And we're not having to spend all this effort bringing new people through the door.
Yeah. There's nothing more valuable than happy customers. They sell for you. For those of you who've gone through our 100%. Training, know that we teach that very thing, right?
I was actually going to refer back to your first point, Dimple, is resetting expectations. Really being able to kind of roadmap with them what they need, what they're looking to do. And they might not be able to get all that right out of onboarding. They had this big lofty dream, but at least setting up milestones of how you can get to that point along the way.
Are you guys hearing feedback, or is it just
me? I was as well.
Yeah, that's bizarre. And I thought it might have been Jerry because he's at a conference hall, but it's not Jerry because he's muted.
Yeah, I'm trying to move away from the crowd so we can get some more quiet. But
you were muted. We were muted when we were getting that feedback. Are you hearing that, Ashley?
I did hear a little bit
that as well.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay. All right. Cool. Anna, thank you for the question. I much empathy to you for what you're going through. I've been there and have had to deal with that. I think that there always will be corner cases, but if it's something that's happening consistently, there's a fundamental flaw in the way in which your sales teams are trying to close business, and it really is something that I think you need to escalate up to upper management to discuss and have a conversation about it, because you are spending if you are spending a lot of time trying to fix bad fit customers, you end up taking time away from your good fit customers, right? So it's an incredibly, if it's something that's being done knowingly and deliberately, it's an incredibly selfish thing to do because it affects your entire company. And the only person that benefits from it is the salesperson who's lining their bank account with a commission check. I have very strong feelings about this. And it's something that I when I was running those teams myself, something I would not tolerate. But I don't jump to the conclusion that people are doing it, on purpose. I first approach it as, is there is there an education gap here? Do we need to help them better understand what we're doing, what we have to offer, and always take that route first?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nothing wrong with selling the dream, right? But we got to have an approach to get to that dream.
Exactly.
And we got to work together to deliver on that for our customers. So, it is a collaborative effort, Andrew, and I think Dimple said it as well. You got to just really connect with those sales teams, understand what they're selling, and say, hey, this is how we can help each other and deliver a great experience to our customers.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Dimple, I muted you because I think I'm getting some feedback from you. So maybe could you turn down your volume a little bit? That might be what it is. Because it seemed to have stopped when I muted you. Anna, thank you for the question. Lior asks, can you share which platform you are using to manage your interactions with your customers? You've mentioned remembering their initial goals, taking meeting notes, and quickly catching up on that in following conversations, and which type of messaging you're using that you find the most useful, GIF, in-app messages, what have you. I'm sure that Dimple is using HubSpot like we are. And Jerry, I got to believe you're using ServiceNow. Chris, what are you guys using over at Genesis?
We're using Gainsight.
Okay.
So Gainsight to keep track of a lot of notes, but for my internal purposes, I use OneNote just to be able to keep track of all my meetings. I have tabs for each of my customers so that I can keep track of everything. And I try to have it's like a snapshot of my customer at the top as well to make sure I recap why they bought the product, what their commitment is, what their ACV is, what are some of the goals they're looking to solve, and being able to update that as we continue to have meetings. We'll be 35, 40 meetings in. You can't go by each meeting and try to figure out what's happening. So make sure that you update that master document in OneNote to be able to keep track of everything.
And if you're not a Microsoft shop or you have a limited budget, Google offers a ton of value. I know plenty of companies. I know plenty of people who we use Google Sheets. We use Google Docs all the time. Google Docs are great. I use a running Google Doc with my direct reports. What's going on a weekly basis. And it's just scrolling. I can scroll through the whole thing. So to your point, you could have a Google Doc for each one of your customers.
Also, his last question was which messaging apps does he use? You really should ask your customer, like, how do they want to be communicated? What's their best preference? If you're speaking a different language to someone, like, they're not going to understand what you're saying. So you want to connect with them where they're at. So a lot of the times I use email, Zoom. We're in this virtual world. Hopefully we'll get back to in-person pretty soon, but Zoom is the next best thing, or Teams, whatever it is you use, and try to do cameras on so you can see people's faces, see people smiling, see body language. It adds an additional layer of personality and personability to the engagement.
Yeah, that's a great point. Always always put your camera on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a definite one, Chris. Connecting on that level, person to person, seeing the interaction. And I think you said something that's really important there. It's like, where do they want to be met at?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So often we take it for granted that we know the best way of them. Well, we're going to, again, it's back to the methodology. We're going to tell them the best way. But they want to be met at some other way and some other form factor. Then we need to be able to be adaptable to deliver in that form factor.
Right.
Use the customer's language.
I would say it's kind of like, if you think about people learn in different ways, right? Visual versus like tactile learners. The same way with communication styles. Like, not everyone wants to communicate in the same way. I have some customers that only want to communicate with me via email, and sometimes they'll jump on a call. So it really, I think it's like both of you have said, meeting them where they're at and embracing the communication style they prefer. Yeah,
meeting where they're at's key. I had a chief customer officer. She said, you can send me an email, but if you really need an answer from me quickly, text me. And she would respond to me when she's sitting in board meetings.
Wow.
So meet them where they're at. Great. Thanks, Lior, for your question. Next question is Lisa. Lisa asks, for the customer transition document, I think this is the one that you mentioned, Chris.
Yeah.
Which departments mostly have access to edit and insert information? And is it just a quick summary of the customer, or is it an in-depth document? Also, what exactly does it consist of?
It's pretty in-depth. And I think that goes into how you make the document. You go ahead and set a standard of questions that need to be answered. What departments utilize it or edit it? It's typically our sales team. And then we have solutions consultants that'll go in, and they're all there through the pre-sales cycle. They've gone through, talked through what is going to be delivered with the solution, what they're looking to achieve. So they're the main ones that put that document together and then share it over to the customer success team after. What does it consist of? Like I said, just understanding the customer, understanding what their business is, how they generate revenue, what their ACV is, who some of those key stakeholders are. Is there going to be multiple phases of their implementation? What does, the end goal look like for them? And you continue to kind of, that's just a starting point, and then you kind of create your own success plan based off that document to continue to iterate and you make small tweaks as you learn more about the customer. As business needs evolve, you'll continue to update that.
I think one really important piece of information that can be provided by the sales team if they're listening to your customers, but definitely something that you should be thinking about capturing about each of your stakeholders is their personality style. What is the type of person we're dealing with here? That's super important to capture.
It is. And like when we go in with implementations, I always jump in and say, I want to know their kind of, we talk about personas and all that, but that's the first thing I want to capture, Andrew, is what kind of their management style, their personalities. I capture that because it's critical. And then the other thing, Chris, you talked about this document, and my product success team runs this document, and I have access to it, but it has everything. I want to know where they started and what they were promised, like you said, and where they're at on their journey. What features that they had issues with, because I want to jump in and help them with that, and write down, document those lessons learned so that the next customer won't have those hiccups. But you want to know, it's got to be as detailed as possible to help, because my customer success team and my expert services team are looking at it for different information, but I'm looking at it to make sure that the customer we're all looking for customer success, but the value of each feature may be different for each department.
Great.
Exactly. Liza, sorry if I butchered your name. Thank you for your question. Let's go to somebody from LinkedIn Live via Tracy. Anthenia asks, please repeat the name of the book. I didn't quite get it. Thank you. I believe the book we were referring to was Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And then from Anna again. Anna, for keeping data and reporting, do you use Salesforce? Have you worked with a better app for this purpose? I think we all answered that one.
Yeah.
For the most part. But Salesforce works.
It'll all depend on your organization, what you have access to.
Yeah, exactly.
I think our company, we use Tableau, and Tableau BI, and it keeps a good record and database of all that stuff. But again, it's whatever your company has and
whatever your data needs are. We run SQL Server on Azure and throw a Clipfolio front end on it, and that works for us. So
yeah, and at HubSpot we use a tool. We use HubSpot, but then we also use a secondary tool called Success App, which is proprietary, and it has a whole series of customer data points on there. So specifically, like what tools are they using, what tools are they not using that are part of their subscription. And then also, any customer at HubSpot can reach out to our technical support team. So I can see when was the last time they reached out? Are there any outstanding issues so that I can address those on upcoming calls that I have with the customer?
Awesome. Pam from LinkedIn, do you use tools like Gong to take notes, and does such a tool help you focus better on the conversation? I record every call that I have on Zoom.
Yeah.
And if it's if it's an important call, I have it transcribed, and that way I can be fully present and just jotting down occasional notes as I'm going through the conversation. Yeah. But I want to be fully present to the person. And for the last 6-7 years that we've been using Zoom, I've only had one person ask me not to record the conversation. So, because I hear a lot of, well, you're recording, but there's that thing that pops up when you log on to Zoom that says this meeting will be recorded. So if somebody has an issue with you recording it, they can speak up, but I found it to be incredibly valuable because it allowed me to really focus on the conversation.
Yeah, the text transcript is so important, right? Because you may have missed something because you're into them, right? But you want to go back and read that text transcript to really make sure you got the clear message, right? Because it is about being attentive to what they're in presence in the time that they need it. But having that ability to read that text transcript, listening to it over again, you always miss something. I guarantee you, in a 30-minute call, you're going to miss something. Or there's something that you wanted to say to them or relate to them that you didn't, but now you're able to go back and give to them in through those transcripts or that recording.
And the last thing you want to do is miss something in a situation where you are fully present for them and you're listening to them and they're sharing and you have one of those situations like what Chris mentions in Never Split the Difference where they overshare. They share it and you miss that, right? Or you forgot to write something down. Yeah. So yeah, huge fan of that sort of thing. Yeah, Chris Dipple, do you guys use those types of tools?
Yeah, I use Gong. We use Gong at HubSpot, and I think Gong is helpful for going back and listening to the conversation, but it's also great for a lot of times. The Gong will have specific metrics in terms of like how long you're talking for, or how long what was your patience time frame? Like how long did you wait for the other person to respond? And so it's a great way to look at your own metrics and try to improve that way as well.
Yeah. Improve your active listening by reading your Gong metrics, right? Yeah. I like that.
I use Zoom, but I'm actually planning to use Gong a little bit more just to be able to get some more of that text transcript. And like you said, Dimple, get a little bit of a gut check when you're a little too impatient.
Awesome, Pam. Thanks for the question. Next, Liza again. Speaking of using data, is sending out a survey and analyzing satisfaction scores a good idea? Can we use the results to help calculate our customer health score? Well, I get a little bit off topic, but surveying or assessing your customers is always a good idea.
Yeah, I would say it's a good idea, but it's not the only metric that you use, right? Because surveys, people get survey fatigue.
Yes.
It's in the industry. It's just survey fatigue. Yeah. So you have to be able to be proactive and go out and ask questions as well. I mean, really connect with the customer on that personal level again, and ask them direct. Because a survey only gives you the generic, I like to say the top of the water kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It doesn't break it down to the iceberg level beneath the surface. And so while you get some data from the surveys, survey fatigue is out there. It's definitely a thing. How many people get surveys when they use an app and they just give you the smiley face 5 and you move on, right? So
what are you really getting from that, right?
Yeah,
what are you really getting? You're getting somebody who just wants to move on. And I want to get back to my work, right? So is that really helpful? The other thing that's super important when you're doing surveys is both timing, right? You need to be very deliberate about when you time that survey, right? You don't want to send somebody an NPS survey when they're in the middle of onboarding, for example.
Yeah.
And also making sure that you're asking the right questions to the right people. Right? A key stakeholder survey should look very different than individual users using it on a daily basis. And the results need to be interpreted differently, right? The key stakeholder who gives you a 9 or a 10 in an NPS survey is far away from the product, right? They may be giving you a 9 or a 10 because they just got off the golf course with their account executive, who filled them with food and booze. Right, your individual user though he gave you a 4, right? So you got a 9 and a 4, right? Yeah. That's so you got to be not. It's not just about timing, but it's about the actual person that you're reaching out to.
Absolutely. You can also leverage surveys to get some good qualitative data. Understand, maybe after onboarding, understand. How was the onboarding process? Where were some areas that they had challenges with that they didn't understand? So that way you can go back and continue to iterate on your onboarding process to hopefully mitigate some of those challenges. And maybe there's some opportunities to keep it on brand with the personalization to, as you have the ongoing relationship, now you can fill those gaps for them that they had during the onboarding process to make sure those are addressed.
Yeah, I would say that, a lot of times once you implement it, the teams are like, and I ask people at ServiceNow, because we always had these go live cakes, right? You go live, and I said, what's after go live? What's after go live?
Yeah.
We got to engage with them again. We got to ask questions. So that's the typical question. What's after go live? Is it a survey governance, as Andrew said, and the right questions?
Exactly.
There's a good one about cultural differences.
Yes, yeah. I was just gonna ask that one from Lior. Are you taking into consideration cultural differences in case you run a more global portfolio of customers? How does that affect your approach of personalization?
It's important.
Yeah.
I mean, every culture has different, rules, things that allow them to do business or ways that they like to interact with folks when they're doing business. So making sure that you understand some of those cultural nuances is very important. Something that you might say in America might be different in a different place. And you could offend someone. So you have to really, it goes into understanding your customer. That's another step, understanding kind of their background, who they are as a person, to be able to know how to connect with them.
Yeah, and if by the way, if you don't know,
ask
them. Okay, that right there will establish a connection. You have enough respect for the fact that I come from a different culture that you're asking me how we should be interacting.
Yeah,
and you got to know, one of the only things I learned from getting my MBA was the difference between high tech and low tech communication countries, right? In the Asian countries, you got to be more direct, or in Europe, you got to be more direct, and in North America, you can be a little bit more flexible, use a little bit more slang or whatever, right? Sure. But those other countries, they're direct.
Yeah.
In some of those countries, it's still male dominance. I'm sorry to say that, Dimple, but there's still no dominance in some of those other countries. And so, a lot of the times whenever I would go in for the Asian market and my boss was a female, and we would talk about it and say, this is not disrespectful for you. I just want us to deliver a clear message and get personal with them. So let's talk about it. Let me deliver it. It may be your ideas. And at the same time, it saves you from having to cut and fight through that chase. We partner up and we meet them how they want to be met.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing with the communication. Ask.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Before we get to this last question, so there are a couple of questions in there about learning about customer success roles. Please check out our website, successcoaching.co. Up in the top right-hand corner, there's a bunch of resources. While we have training programs, we also create a ton of content. And we've created a ton of content. There's blogs in there. There's information about how to land your next job in customer success. So take advantage of that information that we offer to you in front of the paywall. So Jeffrey from LinkedIn asks, or maybe Jeffrey wasn't from LinkedIn. Maybe Jeffrey. Oh yeah, Jeffrey was here, but need some help getting this question asked. So Jeffrey asks, what about non-software agreements, aka managed service providers or old school project management professional service providers? As a CSM, I have found it incredibly difficult to define and prescribe metrics or really any business outcomes to the agreement itself, other than aligning outcomes to the solutions supported or solutions delivered. How does one describe the outcomes of effectively remote non-permanent staff aug? I don't know. I think that's the role for whoever's managing that staff, right? We need to deliver. We need to get from point A to point B for the customer. And I think the way I interpret this question, if you need to explain, but the way I interpret this question is that you're focused on the desired outcomes of your managed service providers, but that's not where your focus needs to be. Your focus needs to be on the desired outcome of the customer.
That's exactly what I said, Andrew. It's 100%. The focus is not what you told them you're going to deliver, but what they expect to be delivered. And that's what it is. It's meeting the customer's needs. It's not meeting that dream, again, from the sales consultant teams, but meeting the expectations of our customers.
Yeah. And that's how you get that, you earn the trusted advisor status. You're not pushing your goals, your metrics, how you're going to be measured. You want to make sure that you're tracking their success. I always tell my customers, my success is based off your success. If you're not successful, how could I be a customer success manager? So, it's not always the customer is right, but the customer needs to be successful. And then, the customer being happy doesn't always mean they're successful. So make sure that you understand what those metrics are, what those goals are, not that they just like you, but making sure that you're continuing to track along to those outcomes that they're looking to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. All right, listen, we're at the end of our time. Jeffrey, reach out to me on LinkedIn, drop me a note. Maybe I can give you some more, some additional feedback on this and give you some more perspective on this. But yeah, reach out to connect with me on LinkedIn and reach out. So, but we're at the end of our time for today. I think it was a great conversation, but it's not what I think. It's what all of you think. So please let us know by posting your feedback on LinkedIn and tagging either myself, our guests, or Success Coaching. I want to thank my amazing panelists. Thank you all for spending the time with us and for the ideas, thoughts, insights, and best practices that you shared. One final note, great CSMs know that they don't have all the answers, but they know where to get them. That's why we created CSM Mastermind, to harness the knowledge and experience of the community to help improve everyone. So thank you all for coming. We hope to see you again at our next event on July 20th, when we'll discuss moving from reactive to proactive engagement. Until then, make sure to make space for yourself and your mindset every single day. And have a great rest of your day, week, and month, everybody.